Hello, everybody, and welcome to November 1st, 2018 edition of the Ephrom Josine Show. I am your host, Ephrom Josine. So, you guys are probably expecting me to talk about the new ad that the president recently tweeted out. That being an ad of someone who came here under George W. Bush, a Republican president, murdered a bunch of people, and then, I guess, stayed here, which is clearly the fault of Democrats for some reason. Despite the fact he came here under a Republican president. Oh, and despite the fact that Barack Obama deported more people than most presidents before him. And the harshest immigration laws in our country's history were signed by Bill Clinton, not any Republican. Oh, and the biggest amnesty of the time was done by Ronald Reagan. All of this, of course, would be very surprising for a president to just get so much wrong at once if it was not Donald Trump. But that's not what I find interesting. You see, we're going to talk about Candace Owens again. Now, first off, I have some sad news. Her boyfriend Kanye West broke up with her. Note, I don't actually believe they were in a relationship of that kind. I obviously do not think that. That was a joke. Just figured I should warn you guys before the MAGA people come in here and accuse me of, I don't know, something. They'll find something. But basically, after that happened, Tommy Lawrence tweeted this. Are you gonna turn on Kanye now? The ship was doomed to sink from the start, but hunger for fame and money was placed over the movement. Can I just say, when you call your political ideology a movement, I always think you're kind of pretentious. Funny how he was a free thinker before and now he's a traitor. Sounds a lot like the tactics of the left. Just a little thing, Tommy, by the way, we didn't come up with that one. We weren't the ones who put facts and logic in the captions of all our videos. Yet. We will start doing that soon, though. You made your bed, now lie in it. Okay, that's a rare moment where I agree with Tommy Lawrence. Here's what Candace Owens responded with. Tommy, I think I can speak on behalf of people on both sides of the political aisle and say we are sorry about your failed career. Her career isn't failing. I mean, let me think. She was fired from The Blaze, which is failing horribly, especially after she left. Like, only 4 people watched The Blaze back when Tommy was on it. Now, like, the only person left on there is Glenn Beck. I know, I feel sorry. But yeah, now she's on Fox, the network you're on every day. She's just an official contributor. The desperation to be relevant again by constantly subtweeting me and or attacking Kathy Griffin weekly. To be fair, Kathy Griffin is kind of horrendously unfunny. I do agree with that. You shouldn't be attacking Kathy Griffin as often as you are because she attacks herself just fine. Yeah, Tommy posted a picture for Halloween of her dressed up as Kathy Griffin and I guess holding a clown head. Good to know she actually agrees with us. This president is a clown. And here's hoping that clown's son did not see it. Doesn't bode well for any movement. Grow up. Beautiful. Words of poetry. Anyway, so that's going on. It's probably not going to go anywhere, but I thought that was funny. But Candace Owens is starting a new movement. The Blexit movement. It's black and exit. Which, am I the only one who finds that a little racially charged? You know, you directly say your movement appeals to black people. You know, hashtag Allsit. What? That doesn't make any sense. All exits matter. That's my new name for this. But what is this Blexit movement? Well, it has its own website, Blexit.com, and its slogan is "We Free." because bad grammar really makes me want to join a movement. Well, I guess I can't join it because I'm white. Uh, you see, that's the hard thing with things like this. You guys create these movements specifically for black. Yeah, they're spending a few years attacking Black Lives Matter for just doing that. When their message was honestly much more agreeable than yours. Like, their name was just Black Lives Matter. That's what they said. Now, a lot of them did go to an extreme, and I will not deny that. Actually attacking people. However, at least with that, I can agree with the statement the movement was making. Yours is literally just black exit, specifically from the Democratic Party, but I guess hashtag Black Republicans Matter or something just didn't have the same ring to it. But what is Blexit? Well, this is what the site says. Blexit is a frequency for those who have released themselves from the political orthodoxy. It is a rebellion led by Americans wishing to disrupt the simulation of fear, unless they're of immigrants. Blexit is a renaissance. Oh my god, you sound so pretentious right now. I'm sorry, just comparing your own movement to the rebirth of culture itself. Basically the creation of modern Western civilization. No, bad. It is a formal declaration of independence. I repeat my last point. Now, lucky for me, this website does have a section of truths, so allow me to educate myself. There are a whole bunch of them, too. I haven't actually read this before, so I'll just go through the ones I find particularly interesting. Lynching, a fate for both blacks and whites. 3,446 black Republicans and 1,297 white Republicans were lynched by the KKK between 1882 and 1986. Yeah. And 75% of them were black. So this is called a fate for both black and white. 75% is more than a fate for both. But okay. President LBJ's true motivations. And then it says, I'll have those. Then take a guess what he says next. Voting Democrat for the next 200 years. First off, that wasn't the actual racial slur in Texas at that time. Like, that was just honest to God the name. It sounds screwed up, and it really was. But that was honest to God, just the name, just the term they used. They had a few other actual racial slurs that were the actual ones they used to people they hated, but that's another story. But even then, okay. And yeah, he signed the Civil and Voting Rights Act to get people to vote for him. It's almost like he's a politician or something who was running for re-election in 1964 and possibly even could have had a second term. Okay, give up your voting rights then if it bothers you so much. Margaret Sanger, who they don't actually mention was the Planned Parenthood founder, oddly enough, calls for black extermination. And then it shows her, quote, colored people are like human weeds and need to be exterminated. Okay, yeah. She said some bad things? How does that prove her general overall thesis wrong? For that matter, if you want to talk about, let's make this bipartisan. I want you to look up some of the stuff Theodore Roosevelt had to say. I think you'll find that particularly fascinating. I'm skipping around a couple of these. Forgotten March, Forgotten People 2.0. They march for 2,000 separate illegal aliens, but are silent for the 900 black babies aborted today. Didn't, like, 2 days ago we cover Andrew Klavan saying black people had too many kids? Like, this is what I mean. You know, when black people are having children at a greater rate than white people, that's proof they're fiscally irresponsible and as such don't deserve any of our charity. But then if they don't do that through methods science has developed, well, clearly it's because they're racist or the Democrats have tricked them. What? You can't win with these people. They also show, well, I'll just read this one. Black kids are super predators. In 1996, Hillary Clinton broadly described black youth as super predators with no conscience or empathy. That was in the context of the criminal black youth, as in the black youth who committed crimes, typically violent ones. There was a lot of black crime going on in the 90s. It's for reasons you could argue are systemic, but they're not really trying to disprove that, so I'm not even going to bother. But okay. And then it's Truman. Negroes ought to be in Africa. Isn't that the Republican immigration policy? Europe is for Europeans. Africa is for black people. What's different there? And then this one I don't even get. President Barack the barista. And then it shows it has Bill Clinton saying, a few years ago, Barack Obama would have been getting us coffee. Is that even racist? Do you have the context he said that? Because it just sounds like he could say he was an intern. Or he was a lower level in the DNC. I'm trying to... I'm sorry, I am using the standards you guys have set up, which is you have to explicitly prove to me this is racist. You have not. The KKK's real origin story. The Democratic Party created the Ku Klux Klan. Actually, they didn't. Nathan Bedford Ford did. Nitpicky, I know, but that's a very specific individual who was associated with the Democratic Party, yes, but wasn't the full Democratic Party. There was no meeting where a bunch of right Democrats were in a room and then Nathan Bedford Ford just walked in and said, all right, boys, let's start the Ku Klux Klan. That just never happened. After the Confederacy's defeat in the Civil War. Again, it's going to be funny when you guys have to deal with neo-Confederates. Jim Crow, a child of the Democrats. Jim Crow segregation laws in the South were created and maintained by Democrats. We've all known this and have addressed this. We have a million responses to this. My personal favorite is, yeah. And most people aren't racist anymore, so what's the point? Again, a lot of people, and at this time, basically everyone was racist. You know who the last president who owned slaves was? Ulysses S. Grant, the Union General. And then there's a Negro could not be an American citizen. Democrats supported the Dred Scott Supreme Court decision that determined descendants of slaves could not be citizens. That's not what it determined. Dred Scott determined that the argument in Dred Scott was more or less that slaves could not be regulated because they were property, and the Constitution did not give authority to regulate property. It was this weird merging of free market ideas plus slave ones. It was kind of confusing. I don't blame you for... The KKK as protection force for the South. President Woodrow Wilson hails the rise of the KKK to protect the Southern country. That's what you went with for Wilson? He screened Birth of a Nation in White House? That's what you went with? The beliefs of Governor Wallace. George Wallace, who was from Alabama. Just gonna mention that real quick. Once stated, segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. Wasn't that during his presidential campaign where he failed at getting the nominee? And then won the South that Republicans just won? Okay, this is the last one. Democrats versus civil rights projection. Eugene Bull Connor unleashed attack dogs and fire hoses on civil rights demonstrators in Alabama. He also never held federal office. And died in 1972. Fun fact. Or 73, my bad. So in conclusion, these people are not victims to anyone except Democrats. I'm Ephrom, and good night.